Welcome. I hope you enjoy the conversation you're about to see between me and another comedian about religion and comedy. These are conversations I'm calling disorganized religion. God bless. And for those atheists out there, may nothing await you after this life.
Hey nerds, welcome to another episode of Disorganized Religion. I'm your host, as always, Seth Lawrence, and today I am joined by two fantastic comedians. First, Andy Ryder. Second, Matthew Robinson, creators, both of them, of the super amazing Instagram live show. Matthew Robinson is the face behind comedian Matthew Robinson, who we might meet a little bit later in this episode.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining me.
So now you know when to get off the podcast when CMR is coming in. That's when you know to stop listening.
Unless you want a really good time. And then stick around. Stick around for a little offense, a little spice and pizzazz. So how long have you each been doing comedy?
I started in 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
I started in 2009.
Oh, wow. So you guys have both been doing it for a pretty hot minute.
And much like my character, I started by taking a comedy class.
Oh, very
Multiple
nice.
comedy classes. There's a little bit of myself in the character.
No, I would never have guessed. And Andy, did you also take a comedy class, or you the old school can't teach me nothing? I'm doing this on my own.
I took improv classes, but I didn't take a stand-up comedy class. No.
Got it.
Yeah, I was just like, there was only I started in Charleston, South Carolina, so there wasn't. At the time when I started, there wasn't a comedy class to take anyways.
Sure.
So it's kind of go up and do it if you want to do it.
Yeah. When do you feel like comedy classes started popping up where you were, if they ever did?
Like 3 or 4 years in, I think, is when that started becoming a thing where people were like, oh, hey, there's this other comedian is teaching a stand-up comedy class. And it was kind of like weird because like all those people who took the class, like they weren't bad, but then like it seemed like shortly after the class, after they finished their class, they never did stand-up again. And I was like, oh.
Sure. Well, for some people, it's kind of a bucket list thing. I just want to get up on stage. I want to perform one time, and then I'm good.
That and skydiving.
Yeah, skydiving's for sure on my bucket list. But becoming an instructor,
I think what we do is braver, Seth. I think what we do is braver than people who skydive.
I think so for sure.
No nets when we're trying to get laughs.
That's right. Oh my goodness.
Yet, though?
What's that?
Have you gone skydiving yet?
No, I have not gone skydiving. I made the mistake of getting married and having kids. So now my wife is like, you cannot skydive, because then what am I going to do? Yeah. Because she imagines the worst. She imagines the parachute won't eject, or, I won't have an instructor strapped to my back that will save me.
Be careful about whatever life insurance policy is taken out in your name.
I know.
Because then if she tells you to go skydiving, then you'll be like,
I'll know something's up. Yeah. What were you going to say, Andy?
I was just going to say that all those things happen to my mom whenever she skydives, so I get it.
The chute doesn't open up, and does your mom skydive for real?
She went skydiving, on her 50th birthday. That was her last birthday, so.
And then she died.
Yeah, that was it, pretty much. We still celebrate it though, so it feels real.
Yeah. And she didn't die from skydiving. She died from choking on.
I think a funeral should be a celebration of life. So I think that's very beautiful what you did, Andy.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, so you started, Andy, in South Carolina. Matthew, where did you start?
Los Angeles, right here.
Oh, right here, baby.
I've actually only done comedy in LA. The farthest north I've ever gone is Santa Clarita. So I am a stereotypical LA comic. This is all I know, which probably explains why all my jokes are insider open mic jokes.
It's great. It's great for those of us on the in crowd. Yeah. Nice. And so, Andy, for you, what made the move to LA?
What? Sorry?
What brought you to LA? Was it stand-up that brought you to LA, or was it something else?
No, it was. I mean, the idea was to eventually be a writer, anyways, and so, I'd had a friend who moved to New York to be part of UCB, and then that didn't happen. But then he produced a one-man show off Broadway there that did okay.
Wow. Yeah.
but still bitter because he didn't get UCB.
Yeah, of course.
I moved to New York. He's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, right, for TV. He's like, just move to LA. Don't go to New York, man. And I was like, all right. And then he's like, don't ever go to New York. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I've touched some nerves here. Apologize.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Now, Matthew, did you do any improv classes or no?
I took a couple of improv classes with this guy who taught UCB, but nothing really formal. I did when I was at the summer program for the American Academy of the Dramatic Arts. I did some improv, but nothing formal. But I don't know if you've ever seen me do non-CMR comedy, but my comedy's always been kind of improvisational and stream of consciousness, and in the moment, heavy mix of crowd work to begin with. So
sure,
I've always just kind of been an improvisational comic. So I've kind of learned on stage doing it that way.
Yeah. Gotcha. So for both of you, what was the draw for stand-up? And I guess for you both, since you both at least dabbled, I don't know, Andy, if you did it more professionally, improv or not, but what drew you kind of away from improv and more into stand-up?
So I started out doing improv. There was a theater in Charleston called Theater 99. And that was like a big comedy theater. And a friend of mine named Tommy Hutchins just said like one day we played soccer together. And he's like, hey, Theater 99 offers classes. We should take it. And I was like, okay. So we started taking classes together. And at the same time, like a lot of the people who were involved at Theater 99 were also doing stand-up comedy. So I was like, oh, like he again, Tommy was just like, hey, they're doing an open mic. We should go do that. I was like, all right. So I was like pretty excited because it's something I always wanted to do. But like when you watch it on TV, it's not like they have a how-to guide on how to get to that point. They're just like, oh, I guess I should have taken a class in college or something. I don't know. I don't know how this works.
Emerson sure thinks they can teach you that.
Yeah.
Just wait, it's coming.
Oh my
You're gonna have a bunch of walking vulture articles lecturing you about why your premises don't work.
Oh no. Gotcha. So it was just kind of in the, I guess, atmosphere at Theater 99, the stand-up bug.
Yeah. And like, now it's weird because like there's a very sharp divide between the people who do improv and the people who do stand-up. But it's like, oh, it's odd. But yeah, at the time it was like, so that's why I never, like when I moved out here, I was like, oh, people do not like improvisers in the stand-up scene out here for some reason. I don't know what happened.
Right. I don't know if it's a rejection of ourselves because so many of us started in improv and then moved to stand-up. Or I also think it's like a one-sided rivalry. It's like the school that hates the other school, but the other school has no idea they're hated.
Right.
So
I've had a couple improviser friends try stand-up, and they usually don't like it. They're like, and it's for all the right reasons to not like it. I was sitting at a mic with my friend Jacob, and he was like, "Is this all you do?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "We've sat here for 45 minutes and haven't gone up yet." I was like, "Oh yeah, this is all we do. We just sit here and wait."
And that's a good mic. Wait till you get the Corbin Bowl and you're number 27.
Right.
He hasn't done stand-up since. That was his last time.
That was it. And did he get up on stage or no?
Yeah, he did. He did get up on stage, but he was like, "You just sit here for like." He's like, "If I do improv, like he was already kind of big at IO, so he could like go up and do shows like all the time." So I was like,
yeah. Huh.
It's also improvisers are too busy dealing with the brutal politics of any theater to really care about what we're doing.
Right.
It's like a fucking country club over there. I mean, I really enjoy improvisation, but I am annoyed by a lot of improvisers. And I remember doing a couple of improv shows after a class, and there were just all these like mind games that were played. It was like going to like the most awkward country club. It was like auditioning for a country club or I was like back on frat row at Vanderbilt. Like it was like the weirdest thing. This one guy, I thanked him for letting me have the gig, and he's like, "Well, that's because we're never going to have you again." Jeez. And I was like, "Is he fucking with me? Is he being passive aggressive?" This one guy shook his hand. He started like massaging the middle of my palm just to fuck with me, and he was on my improv team. Weird. And I was like, I just can't deal with these weird passive aggressive people who watch way too much Arrested Development and think they're funnier than they are.
Right. Well, I think there's this aspect of, I guess, people that deal in comedy, stand-up and improvisers alike, who just can never turn it off.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Like they're for some reason cannot function as a normal human being unless they feel like they're on. all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I remember reading. I think it was I was talking with someone. They were like, "Imagine being around Robin Williams all the time. Imagine how entertaining that would be." I'd be like, "No, that would be fucking hell."
Yeah.
I would want to hang myself after 5 minutes being around Robin Williams, like all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, from my understanding, Robin Williams wasn't always Robin Williams. You know, he's not the one we see on stage, right? Like, he clearly had some dark times in his life. So this ability to turn on and off, I think, comes into huge play with you, Matthew Robinson.
Thank you.
What is the switch? What is the Hulk motivator for you between Matthew Robinson and comedian Matthew Robinson?
Well, there's 2 separate ways I get myself in the character. One is live and one during the live streams and the Zooms. For stage performance, that's why I go up, I slap everybody's hands, I give a bunch of high fives, do a big high energy introduction. One, that gets me in the proper mind space to be the character. Mm-hmm. And secondly, it sets up the audience what they should expect once I get on stage. It's like to kind of get them ready for what they're about to be in store for the next 5 minutes.
Sure.
So that's what I'll do. Usually like 5 minutes beforehand, I'll start thinking about it. For the Zoom and for Zoom shows and Instagram lives, I listen to a lot of new metal beforehand.
Uh-huh.
So I'll either listen to Korn, Limp Bizkit, Chevelle, whatever's I'm in the mood for.
Sure.
And I just put on the hat, man. It's like a reverse Superman. I just get like stupider and more offensive.
That's great. Does Evanescence ever creep into this playlist or no?
No, dude, that's beta. Dude, that's a guy singing a song about
singing sometimes.
No, because it's a guy who's doing the second vocal and Bring Me Back to Life. I can't wake up. He doesn't sound tough.
Linkin Park. What about Linkin Park?
Linkin Park, as long as there's no rapping. I just listen to Chester screaming. God bless. Rest his soul. But as soon as Mike Shinoda starts rapping, that's fucking beta.
You're out.
Yeah.
Got it. Interesting. And so what was your inspiration for the character comedian Matthew Robinson?
I was on the way to yard work back when Disney was hosting it, and I hated my course set. I had nothing planned, and I was sitting next to this guy in a lift line, and he was on Tinder, and he was like your quintessential LA douche, right? You know, like sweatpants, beard, like half-cut shirt.
Yeah.
Swiping back and forth, kind of like a ginger Zach Mendez. That's how I would describe the guy. I mean, I'm just trying to think of a way to describe it.
Are you making fun of me right now?
No, I'm making fun of you and Zach Mendez. It's a layered joke.
Oh my gosh.
And I saw him swiping back, and he was like, summarily swiping back and forth on Tinder. And I wrote this really hacky Tinder joke, and I was like, hey, I should create a character around this. And then I tried it. It had a decent response. I think Kadi Assad and Tessa, I don't know her last name off the top of my head.
That's a Vonderhaar.
Vonderhaar said nice things about it. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll try this again. Then I bought the Strokes shirt, put the Jays hat on backwards, and I've been annoying everybody in LA comedy ever since.
And that was it. Do you remember the Tinder joke? What was the Tinder
joke? I still tell it. Who here's on Tinder? So then people raise their hand like, yeah, I'm on Tinder. I like to use Tinder where I'm taking a dump. That way, when I swipe left, I can tell bitches they ain't shit. And I've had a couple of comics come up to me and tell me they hate my set. And one was like a typical like liberal arts graduate comic from like New York said, I hated that joke.
Yeah.
The only people who've ever told me not to tell a joke, both white women.
Interesting.
And both, I would guess, upper middle class.
Sure. Both kind of the Karen offended on behalf of others.
Yeah, basically, if Ibram X. Kendi ever sees my set, I will get canceled.
Yeah, that'll be it. Be it. Oh my gosh. So, Andy, what's your persona? How would you describe your comedy for people who have never seen you perform?
It's a mix of truth and half truths. That's really about it. Like I don't feel like I'm being any different than I normally am. It's just like I'm just heightening it a little bit. Because I know I've definitely had people like come up to me and they're like, "Oh, that's true, right?" And I'm like, "No, that's not true. That's obviously a joke." And then other things they're like, I had one friend at a festival like keep telling other people he was like, "This guy's a liar, by the way. He just lies throughout his whole set." I was like, I didn't realize the whole point of comedy was to tell the truth all the time. I thought we were making.
I mean, certainly some of it should be truthful,
Yeah, some of it's
but not
true. Like,
all of it should be truthful.
yeah. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie about my grandmother being Asian. Like, she is. Like, that's just the truth. I'm not gonna lie about being married. Like, I am married, so it's like, well, what? There's that. But
Right.
other things that are so far beyond any kind of like normalcy, people are still like, but that's true. I was like, how would that be true? Like, how, like, I used to tell a joke about like being in a short film where like I fall in love with a centaur who's like reversed, like the bottom half is human and the top half is horse. They're like, how did you do that? I was like, that's not a real thing. I don't, how would I have done that? Like, that's not even a possible thing, Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
So for both of you, I feel like truth. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, that's just my comedy, basically.
Yeah, I mean that is comedy. So where for you is, I guess for me as like an observer of comedy, when I watch someone perform and they use a lie in the premise, that's when it bothers me. As like I feel cheated as an audience member.
So what would be an example of that?
Well, like, okay, so like for instance, if it's like I told my wife the other day that like we have to, I don't know. It's usually when people talk about themselves being married or having like a sibling or a kid when they don't have any of those things. It's like just to set up this punchline so they can say something offensive when they're not that thing. Like the premise isn't true, so their punchline feels disingenuous or whatever, right? Like, I don't know, one example that I can't remember which person I saw do this, but it was like, they started the joke by being like, I have a sister who's mentally handicapped. And
okay.
then it's like the joke, which is whatever, but then they come back and they're like, I never had a sister that was mentally handicapped.
Oh yeah, that's annoying.
Oh, they did that in the set?
Yeah. Yeah, or you talk to them later afterward, and I think they're too happy. One, people will admit to it after the joke, be like, "Oh no, that didn't really like, I didn't have that thing that I told you I had." Or two, they'll like let it go, and then after the set, you'll be like, "Oh, no kidding, I have a sister who's mentally handicapped. Has that been tough for you?" And they're like, "Oh no, I didn't. I don't have that. I'm not a loser," or like whatever it is. How do you both play with that? Because you both seem to, I think comedy, yes, it's a mix of truth and lie, but where do you stand on the truth and lie being either in the way or detrimental?
I think I don't really. I kind of see your point. Like if it's like used to just tell like a mean joke about somebody that they wouldn't be able to get away with otherwise, they're like, my sister's this way, and they're like later on they're like, I don't have a sister or whatever, and it's kind of like, okay, well you just use that as like a crutch to get the joke through, I guess.
Right.
But like one of my favorite Stephen Wright jokes is he was like, I was on the grand jury for about 50 million ants that had been accused of dressing up as rice to steal money from the vault of a bank, and he's like, that's not possible. He's like, those ants are I know these ants. And it's like, well, of course he doesn't know these ants. It's so ridiculous and so over the top. On the other hand, I still tell this joke, but I just like, you guys can tell I was homeschooled at one point. Like I'll just say that, and that would get a laugh. And people still think that of me. Like before I told the joke, people thought I was homeschooled at some point. They're like, you were homeschooled, right? I was like, no, what?
Yeah.
But one guy actually did get mad at me because he was like, wait, you weren't homeschooled? I was like, no. And he was like, I was homeschooled. I was like, okay, so I thought of that joke before you. I don't know what you want me to say to that. Like,
right. Tough, I guess.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I guess I don't really like it as a crutch for like getting some like, to like just make a joke about like a handicapped person or whatever. But like, I never go into comedy thinking like this is all true. What this person is saying, yes, definitely. This is gonna like because I also don't look at comedy as like some people look at comedy as like high art and like this is philosophy and this is gonna like change my world, and I'm like I just want to laugh like a lot. I don't care if any of this is true or not.
Right. No, that makes sense. That's fair.
I mean, For me, I think it all depends on A, how good of a joke writer you are, B, how good of a storyteller you are, and C, kind of what your shtick is. So I think you have to be true within what you're trying to do comedically. So like within my character, there's certain truths I have to do within the character that if I don't do those truths, it's not a good performance. I have to make rules about what the character believes, what the character finds funny, and play that character. For me, I sometimes feel that I sometimes approach comedy kind of more like an actor in a way, or like a writer. So for me, I'm not so caught up on truth. I kind of like playing with the concept of what's truth, and I kind of like obfuscating it a little bit. Like sometimes I find that like this whole idea that we have to be truthful in comedy, even if it's an exaggerated truth. I sometimes feel like that's a little bit of a weird rule, and I feel like it hinders people creatively. But I do see your point. Like, if someone's just making up having a sibling with mental problems just to have a joke, the joke better be well told.
Right.
Because then it seems like you're kind of cheating away. But sure. I don't know. I also kind of like more absurdist comedy too. So for me, it's not
I think a lot of it
deal.
has to do with what you talked about in persona. If you're an absurdist comedian, then it's almost like, who cares what premise you use? But if you play off as like a Tom Segura, say, a storyteller, or a Bill Burr, right, who's going to tell you some things that they've really genuinely thought about, then it feels disingenuous if you're suddenly breaking that just to get through some punchline.
Yeah, like if I found out you weren't a Mormon and had 3 kids and didn't go to Brigham Young University, I would be pissed.
Right, because that's the only reason you even know who I am.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
You're the comic who doesn't drink caffeine.
Oh well, I drink caffeine.
Oh,
I do drink caffeine. No alcohol though. No alcohol. Right. So how did you two meet? How did you two start the live stream show?
I remember the first time I saw Matthew was definitely at that Yardwork set. The first Yardwork set he did at CMR. But I don't think we started talking until we started seeing each other at Winovino.
Yeah. I think we talked about the Deftones with Peaches, right? That's when the first time we had a real in-depth conversation.
Yeah, Deftones and Faith No More.
Yeah, Faith No More. Yeah. I think I was wearing my Angel Dust shirt.
Yeah.
Sounded like a first date. This is kind of getting a little bit weird.
Yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh.
I didn't know if Andy liked me. I didn't know if he thought it was funny.
Right. Classic issues with open mic comedians when we all first meet.
Yeah, I think, and then Andy and I were working on this other YouTube project. It was called Andy Knows Music, but CMR Knows Better, where he was trying to do this live YouTube vlog about the music he likes, and I would come in each episode and ruin it. So it was kind of like a riff on Beavis and Butthead in a way.
Sure.
And we were going to do a joint show together to release the YouTube series, and then LA shut down.
Right.
So that was right in March, and we still had the date blocked off, and I was like, hey, let's just try and do a live stream.
Yeah.
And I think the first one, it was rough. I think it was just the 2 of us, Hazel, Natasha on it. Yeah. We just kind of rambled back and forth for 30 minutes, and Andy was like, oh, maybe we should have a guest. And then I had a night for myself.
You're like, this is rough, Andy. We should have somebody else to talk to. Okay.
You need to play off some other kind of straight guy that just lets us be crazy.
I think also we didn't script or come up with any ideas about what we would talk about. We're like, oh, we'll just act like we're starting a podcast and just riff, man. We're funny. And then I was like, nope.
Yeah.
At least have somewhat a game plan.
Sure. So what is your Matthew, you were raised in LA? Or
no, I was born in San Luis Obispo, grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So and you were, Andy, raised in South Carolina, or at least raised in South Carolina?
Yeah, born and raised in South Carolina.
Got it. Okay. So based on that, I would guess that Andy has a bit more of a religious background, or at least more religious exposure. But I don't know, Colorado Springs, there might be
focus on the family, dude.
The religious fervor. Yeah. So what's your guys' background? In your, how were you brought up? Were you brought up religiously, or was it just a free for all?
You can go first, Andy.
Okay. So my family was like church on holidays usually.
Mm-hmm. And when you say church, do you mean like Catholic Mass, or do you mean Baptist?
No, like Baptist, yeah.
Okay.
But then like my parents got divorced when I was like pretty young, and then my dad remarried. My stepmom, who's like very into like Pentecostal church, so like whenever my dad's on the weekends, like occasionally we'd go to church as well, and I was like, whoa, this is weird and crazy. Like this is bizarre.
Sure.
Aren't Pentecostal services very high energy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sweaty, right? That's like, are they the snake handlers too? Is that an offshoot of it?
No. That's a very, it's a pretty big offshoot there.
Yeah. But I think they do kind of belong in the general Pentecostal umbrella.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're the holy rollers. They're the speaking in tongues, the public healings.
What about who was it? Jim Bakker? Was he a Pentecostal preacher?
That sounds right.
Maybe he was an evangelical. I don't know.
Wait, no. He was like a Baptist dude. He was like part of the Baptist.
Oh, okay.
But like faith healers and stuff like that. Like I think there's that channel Trinity Broadcast Network. I think they're all like Pentecostal.
I feel like we need the phone Regilio in to really answer these religion questions. He seems to know everything.
He knows. He definitely would know.
Sure.
So you kind of straddled then Pentecostal and Baptist.
Yeah, but like, I think when I started going to church on my own, I just went to like Baptist for a while, and then it was just like, okay, I'm just gonna go to like a non-denominational. I went thinking like my first year of college, I went to a Lutheran church for a bit because that was the only church that was open early enough for me to go there and then go to work immediately after.
Gotcha.
But that was like a really interesting switch for me. I was like, whoa, we are much more laid back here. All right, cool. Good for you.
Laid back in what sense? Laid back in like what it means to sin or repent, or what do you mean laid back?
Like every aspect was like pretty laid back. Like it was just like, oh, like they weren't like, I felt like in Charleston, I feel like people go to church, but it's almost like more of a social thing.
Yeah.
Than anything else. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing just fine. And it's like, what's really going on though, dude?
Sure.
Whereas like church, like they're not like being vocal about it, but they're not trying to hide it either, where they're like, oh yeah, no, totally. I was one of my friends, like he went to that church, but as like a joke, they had this thing at the campus where like you could ride a golf cart with like these goggles that would warp your vision a little bit, and that was supposed to be like give you the idea of like driving drunk.
Sure.
He was very open with that. He's like, I've driven drunk several times. Like, this is nothing like this, okay? Maybe keep that down next to the police officer standing next to you. Don't talk about that so much, but like.
Sure. I see what you're saying. Yeah, a little bit more real then.
Yeah, a little more real. Now I go to like Mosaic. Like I just watch that on like weekends now that we're not meeting in person, but.
Yeah. So what is Mosaic?
They're like a non-denominational church or whatever.
Okay.
Out here.
Yeah. Still identify as Christian?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Sweet. What about you, Matthew? Oh, sorry. What did you have something else, Andy?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought I heard a dog bark. What?
Oh, okay.
The palms are up.
Yeah. Matthew, what about you? What about you growing up in Colorado Springs?
Well, first of all, I would say that comedy is my religion. So,
Okay. All right.
No.
Yeah.
Growing up in Colorado Springs, Colorado, we were technically Methodist, but religion wasn't a big part of my life growing up. We were like C&E Protestants.
Yeah.
I think I cried when I was baptized.
So C&E, when you say C&E, what does that mean?
Christmas and Easter.
Got it.
So, we basically just celebrate the holidays and even go to church.
Yeah.
I guess you could say culturally Christian.
Yeah.
I think I would drive my mom crazy when she would try to get us up for Sunday school. I would just fake like I was asleep the whole time until she would get exasperated and just give up.
Okay.
So religion just wasn't a big part of my life. My dad, he never really stated his religious beliefs. He unfortunately passed away. I believe he was pretty much an atheist. Maybe he had some vague belief in an afterlife, but he was pretty much maybe he found at the end I think maybe he tried to find some faith, but he wasn't a big church guy, at least.
Yeah.
I know my grandfather was a deacon in the church, and he was only there for business reasons. He was an atheist himself. So Also, growing up in Colorado Springs, since there are the evangelicals, there is a little bit of an us versus them mentality for the more secular people who live there. We kind of look down on the evangelicals there. I mean, Colorado Springs is conservative, so it's not like, like a coastal versus the middle of the country thing, but they always felt religion felt a little bit weird because they were so, in our opinion, were so religiously extreme. That there was kind of this, like, you didn't want to have anything to do with religion because focus on the family, which is so out there.
Yeah, got it. So when you say you, like, the kind of secular part of Colorado Springs looked down on the more religious part, was it in a sense of the religious people are naive, ignorant, or, just straight up dumb, or like they don't even look at science? Like, in what sense are you
No, I don't think we were like typical LA open mic comedians in that regard.
Yeah.
I think it was just more kind of like it felt weird. Like, I think there was a certain kind of naivete that we looked down on, but it wasn't really so much a dumb thing.
Yeah.
Because we had the same attitude with the Catholics. We felt their kind of superstition, the taking of communion, the eating of the, what is it? What's the term? Transubordination, the Eucharist, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I make this joke that Colorado Springs was so white that our others were Catholics. So, that's kind of, it just felt weird for us to give that much faith to something.
Got it.
And
so
maybe
just
this
in
was
the extreme sense, it was like, they're just, that's off.
Yeah, it just felt a little bit off, and like it felt a little culty. Like when you would go up to Black Forest up north, it was just like the energy would change, and you would feel like you were, walking around Jonestown or something.
Sure. So where do you both fall now when it comes to religion, spirituality? So Matthew, let's start with you. Do you believe in a God or in an afterlife?
I mean, I'm a fence setter about everything. My politics, I'll argue Republican, Democrat. It takes me forever to pick a position. So understandably, I'm agnostic. I really don't decide one way or the other. I think I like the idea of there being a God. I would say I'm more towards the atheist side, but I do find it obnoxious and condescending when people who aren't religious look down on people who are religious. And I think they basically have the privilege to not be religious because I think a lot of people who are religious have had tough times in their life, and they've needed something to help get them through life.
Sure.
And I think it's kind of an arrogant, privileged position to look down on someone who has found religion to help them cope. And also, I mean, even if you look at people who are atheists, everybody believes in something wacky. Like, what's the LA joke? I'm an atheist, but I believe in crystals.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or you believe in some, like...
Yeah, you're manifesting to the universe, or
you believe in look at how many people cried when Obama was elected. I mean, there was this religious energy projected onto him. So
or when Hillary wasn't elected.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of one of those people. I think even if you aren't religious, you will subscribe to religious thinking. So
sure,
that's my roundabout answer to that.
I think that's fair. What about you, Andy?
I mean, I basically believe CMR is going to go to hell one day. That's basically about it.
CMR, I mean, first of all, CMR will. And second of all, CMR doesn't exist, Andy.
And he's going to have to just do mics at Dow Comedy Studio.
Outside in their parking lot.
They keep not finding his name on the slotted list. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Maybe there's a glitch in your computer or something. I don't know, man.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry, what you about to say?
I was just going to say, do you still ascribe to Christianity, or?
Yeah. I still believe in it and go to church and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Nice. And for you, what is the afterlife?
I mean, like, what do you mean? Sorry.
Well, I mean, like what will we be doing? Do you have any idea or any thoughts about what you'd like to be doing?
Like, that's the thing that's always, like, been weird to me is that, people are like, oh, if you get to do this, you get to go to heaven. I was like, and then what? And then you just hang out. I was like, I do that here. I don't always like it. It's not like there's. Sure. I feel like there's something else, but I just don't know what it is. And people are like, oh, and the roads are paved with gold and stuff like that. I was like, that means nothing to me. That does nothing for me.
It's a U2 song.
Yeah, they're like pearly gates. I'm like, okay, again, nothing
right.
doing.
Yeah, you're just hanging out with Bono, and you think it's gonna be cool, but he just lectures you about Africa. You're like, dude, I'm dead.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Nice. All right.
Can I just hang out with the Edge instead and just talk about guitars?
That'd probably be
Play
preferable.
the riff from Bullet in the Blue Sky over and over again. You're like, all right.
Do you think Eddie Van Halen's idea of hell is like him being on the same stage as the Edge and people being more impressed by his guitar playing? Do you think that's what's happening to Eddie Van Halen right now if he's in hell?
They're more impressed by his guitar playing, or
no, by with the Edge.
The Edge.
Oh.
They're like, I really love With or Without You. He's like, it's just 3 notes.
Yeah. I mean, I do think hell is going to be a personal thing. I don't think of like necessarily heaven and hell as being places, more of states of mind, states of being.
Well, I think it's the internal manifestation of strife and joy. So I think it's kind of what we imagine in mental. I take a very philosophical view that it's kind of the manifestation of what we want.
Yeah.
And I think that's our fear. Yeah, true. I think it's not an anthropological point of view. But yeah, I think that's definitely true. You know, I think it's kind of like a creative expression of what we fear, love, want.
Yeah.
My hell would definitely be listening to Andy's set on repeat. Oh, sorry, that's CMR. Sorry. Sorry.
Oh my!
Sometimes
goodness.
It seeps in. You know, I just can't control it.
It's so rough. That's so rough. Now, I don't know if we're gonna hit because I'm a poor lad. If we're gonna hit our Zoom meeting limit, we might get cut off at any moment. But I wanna move now to where you guys get to pepper me with questions on my faith. We got a good taste of your, comedic background, your religious thoughts, spiritual thoughts. I want to move now to let you, Andy, and you, Matthew, or whomever you might invite, to ask me, what's the deal with Mormons?
Seth.
Yeah.
You guys cannot donate blood, right?
We can. It is, oh my goodness. It is Jehovah's Witnesses that cannot donate blood. Right. Mormons, we're good. Members.
Did you give my tape to your brother Joey?
I didn't. First of all, I didn't get your tape. And second of all, for the 5th time, Joey is not my brother. It's a different Lawrence.
Okay, can you give it to Mitt Romney?
Can you at least introduce yourself first? And then...
Hello, my name is comedian Matthew Robinson. I'm a comedy alpha. There's been a lot of beta bullshit going on right now. So I came to set things straight.
Are you going to look at the camera, or are you just going to give us the profile the entire night?
I'm afraid to connect, Seth.
All right. You know what? Fair enough. I did not give your tape to Mitt Romney. I would love to. You got to send it to me.
Okay, I'll just get the liar guys to edit in some laughs, and then I'll send it to you.
Okay, that'll be good. I can't wait.
So Seth, I have a question.
Sure.
Before you go on stage, do you use an e-meter to see what kind of mood you're in?
An e-meter?
Yeah, an
e-meter.
Is that
a Scientology thing?
Yeah. A moron thing.
No, I don't use an e-meter. I'll say a quick prayer and then I'll hop up on stage.
Man.
Okay. Have you been watching the news lately?
Yeah, some of it.
Are you upset that your leader, Keith Raniere, got 120 years for assaulting those members of their quote-unquote cult?
Unbelievable. Are you talking about the Rizmi guy or whatever that is?
Yeah, the guy from Nexi Mormonism.
That's not what it is.
It was Next Level Mormonism.
No. You know what? I don't even know who
that guy had a lot of wives, so I think you should be impressed.
I mean, look, I'm impressed, but not on a religious level. I feel badly for all of his victims. I just can't even imagine. But no, he had no affiliation with my faith. CMR.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I'm
right.
going to do some research in that. And lastly,
yeah.
Did anyone in your family die at the Jonestown massacre?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
What about Waco?
No.
What about the Children of God? What about the Manson family?
Oh my gosh. No, neither of those involved anyone in my family.
Is there anything I could do to get you to brand Joseph Smith's initials on your genitalia?
There is nothing you could do, CMR. There's nothing.
This has been very informational.
we actually as a faith discourage tattoos because we believe in the body as a temple, right?
So you stole that from our Jewish brothers and sisters.
Stole what? That idea?
That you can't get tattoos.
I mean, I don't know that we stole that idea necessarily from them. One thought I believe that we are the second chosen people. The Jews were the first chosen people, members of the Church of Jesus Christ. Number 2, baby. We are the second chosen people.
Elections would say otherwise.
What do you mean? Which elections?
I think we're going to have a gay trans president before we have a Mormon president. I think Mitt Romney ruined that for your people.
I feel like the media ruined it for Mitt Romney is what happened, and ruined it for the rest of us. You know, I feel like because Mitt Romney was not elected, we ended up with Donald Trump.
When you go on vacations with your family, do you put your dog on the top of your station wagon as well?
You know, we never actually took a vacation with a dog as a family. But you know, I mean, to be quite honest, I don't see the problem with that.
Now you're understanding what Andy has to go through twice a week, Seth. So you should have a newfound appreciation for his patience.
I do. I always appreciate Andy. Andy looks as patient as the religion he looks like he belongs to.
Yay! Which one is it?
Amish or Mennonite.
Oh.
Nice roast, Lawrence. You're all right.
Seth, I got 2 questions for you.
Yeah, please.
One, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. What group is that?
What do you mean? That is my faith.
That is your group.
Yeah. So Mormon is a nickname that has been given to us by others that we've sort of embraced and tried to rebrand over the years. But our church leadership has actually come out a couple times within the last few years to say, hey, we need to step away because people are confused. They think Mormons are just about some guy named Mormon. And the real name of our church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So if you're going to shorten it, just Church of Jesus Christ, then no one's confused. We're Christian.
I was going to ask you if Mormon was Brigham Young's nickname.
No, not Brigham Young's nickname. Mormon actually comes from the individual who collected and put all of the gold plates together to become what we now know as the Book of Mormon. So originally written by
Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Yeah, right. No, not Trey Parker, Matt Stone. Many ancient American prophets, and Mormon, one of these prophets, at the end of the time period that the Book of Mormon covers, collected all the plates and put them together.
Do you guys used to have a bunch of commercials in the 80s?
Yeah, it's about time.
Why don't they have those commercials lately anymore?
I think we sapped the TV market for all we could. We've moved online, so you can find some online commercials now. You gotta modify your searches though, CMR. You in particular.
Yeah, I did some searches and I saw a bunch of Mormons doing ungodly things on a dark website. I don't think they were real Mormons.
I don't think they were real Mormons either.
Are you required to like Killers music?
What's that?
Are you required to like the Killers?
I don't think we're required to. I liked Hot Fuss much better than their other subsequent albums. But yeah, their first album was quite good, I thought. Yeah. Very fun.
Are there any like Mormons you look up to where you're like, that guy's or that girl's got it going on? That's awesome that they're doing that or whatever.
I mean, there are definitely people that I know that I admire that, no one else would know or care about. But like in our field of stand-up, Ryan Hamilton, I for sure look up to him. And he's definitely crushing it. And he's done so sort of without the crutch that I go to, which is this, religious background. I think most people who watch Ryan Hamilton would have no idea that he's a member of the faith.
I thought he talked about it like in his Netflix special, like briefly. Like he just touched on it for a second. It was like, oh, okay.
I think he talked about coming from a small town in Idaho. He might have alluded to it, but I don't think he ever came out and was like, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I don't know what cocaine is.
I remember one time there was like a while where I was like a super fan, so I was just trying to find every podcast with him on it just to listen to him talk, And I found one that was just like a podcast they record at the Comedy Cellar. And it was just like the entire table just busting Ryan Hamilton's balls over being Mormon. And I felt so bad. I was like, oh no, Ryan, get out.
I'm gonna have to find. You're gonna have to send me that link. I am so interested to hear that now.
So 2 serious questions.
One, wow, Matthew, welcome back.
I know. I know. I it's late at night. I don't want to scream and wake up my wife, and I just had these thoughts come into my head, so I decided to say it through my real voice.
I loved it.
Thank you. I wanted to give you the CMR experience so you know what Andy has to go through.
It was beautiful.
Twice weekly basis.
I mean, bless you, Andy. Bless you.
And, yes, he is a saint. 2 questions.
Yeah.
Do Mormons have any kind of I don't want to say sympathy towards people who are members of the Church of Scientology, given what Mormons went through in America, being classified as a cult up until, I forget the day it was changed, but, the Mormons were ran out of, what was it, Illinois, right? Joseph Smith had to get run out.
Yeah.
So are you guys more open to any forms of religious persecution? Are you against it? Or even if it is a little bit weird, the religion that's being persecuted?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a personal, for me, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think that we should be, right. We should be more sympathetic to those who face persecution for their religious beliefs. I think as long as they're sincerely held, I don't see any reason to persecute someone for a sincerely held belief that isn't harmful to other people. The part where I'm a little bit less sympathetic to Scientology as a religion of people facing persecution for it is because, I mean, I don't know, I guess it might be hypocritical, but to me it's like, well, it very clearly came from this guy who was a science fiction writer, and it's also used for pretty nefarious purposes, right? Like there are people who they kind of chain up, lock up,
the Sea Lab stuff,
almost slave labor,
servitude.
Yeah. I mean, so to me, it's like, well, that feels more culty and less about really bettering society, community, individuals than it does just harming people for the benefit of a few.
When is there, considering Catholics sometimes look down on other religions, is there ever this little schadenfreude whenever there's another Catholic sex abuse scandal? You're like, haha, we're not them.
No, I mean, Catholics. That feels, I mean, to me, that is truly tragic. Obviously the priests and, to a very lesser extent, nuns that participate in abusing others is awful. And they'll face judgment. But no, I always feel sad for people that, when those stories come out, I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I think in a larger picture, I do view, legitimate, I guess, legitimate or more sincere mainstream religions as kind of in the same boat. Okay. We're all judged based on the Westboro Baptist Church. It's like see. We're all judged based on the most fanatic, so take Islam, right? I feel terrible for those who follow the Muslim faith and are Islamic, and it's like some terrible extremists do awful things and give an entire way of life a really bad name, when really the mainstream way of life is quite beautiful, quite focused on bettering self and others, and not at all about jihad or whatever it is you want to, whichever aspects of the extremist faith you want to pick on. That's not what Islam is about, And
I guess last, I don't know if Andy feels the same way as I do, but part of the reason I moved towards CMR is because being a waspy white male comic, there's nothing unique about it.
Sure.
But you being a Mormon, the moment someone hears you're a Mormon, there's something interesting. There are Mormon comedians, but you are a little bit unique. Does that hold you back? Do you feel like you have to address it? Do you sometimes feel that when you are doing Mormon jokes, that's kind of hacking, you're selling out? Like, what's the internal struggle with playing your faith? Because it is an easy thing to go after for laughs, and it is interesting. But do you kind of feel like, not that it's similar to maybe someone who's trans or someone who is a different identity that's maybe not as well represented, do you fear that you might get pigeonholed if you just talk about quote unquote Mormon things?
Yeah, I guess I don't I mean, the true answer is if I can get famous for anything, that would be amazing. And if I have to be pigeonholed, then I'll be pigeonholed, right? Like I think about like Larry the Cable Guy. Do you feel like he is ever tired of being that character? Yeah, probably. But is he super grateful for what that character's done for him? I bet 100%. And I think at some point we're all a little bit hacky. You know, I think we all know kind of like there are certain things about myself or my character that will always get a laugh. I can always do that. It's cheap. It's easy. It will get a laugh. Like one of my opening jokes is joking about polygamy. And I know it's going to get a laugh and it's super hacky, you know, but it at least sets up kind of what everyone can expect from my set. Sort of like, you know, CMR coming out to hype music.
Yeah.
You know, that's a little hacky. You know, it's a little easy, right? But it sets the stage for what you want to do. And I think
you motherfucker.
The clearer that we can do that as a comedian, then we can play with that going forward. And that's really where I feel like the artistry of stand-up comes in, is where do you take the hack at the end of the set? You know, where do you move it?
I got the idea for coming out to that entrance music after watching Hannah Gadsby's Nanette 3 straight times. So I don't think the idea is hack. I think it's post-comedy.
I mean, if you're trying to put on a one-man show, then I applaud you. I applaud you. Please talk about how difficult your life has been as a waspy alpha. That would be great.
Hey man, I might get a show on Fox News, man. Just leave you all.
I mean, you might. You could be their comedic go-to analyst.
Yeah, dude. Greg Gutfeld's getting old, man. Take his place.
I mean, I guess I do feel a little bit hacky, but I try to play also with, you know, what you talked about, right? The stereotypical LA spiritual, and how most people in LA look down on those of, at least the vocal ones, look down on religion, you know?
Yeah, I love your joke where you kind of turn it. I forget what the exact joke is, but you like talk about people shitting on religion, and you're something like a joke about, that's all right, I'll be smiling at them from heaven.
Yeah, so I have two kind of versions of that. One is, I'll have the last laugh. If anyone's going to laugh at all, it'll be me. The other is where I talk to people about, I try to divide the crowd, right? I'll be like, hey, who here's, you know, religious because I believe something kind of silly, and that's fine. Who believes in crystals? Because that we can all agree is really stupid. But who here is an atheist and a good person? And then the punch is, you know, when a bunch of people are like, oh yeah, totally, that's me. I'm like, great. I think you're wasting your time because nothing is waiting for you. So why be good? I don't understand that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to play my character or my persona as a little bit disgruntled religious, you know, religious, but recognizes there's a world out there and people don't agree with me, but you know, here's why I believe what I believe. And I think you're stupid, just as stupid as I am. Huh.
That's interesting. Cause if you're religious in LA, you kind of are going to have that chip on your shoulder because you're facing resistance at all times. And everybody who claims to be atheist thinks their atheist argument is so groundbreaking when they're just rehashing what Dawkins said or Sam Harris.
Sure. And for me, it's not even like the groundbreaking. It's like, well, this is so clearly true.
Yeah.
Right. Like clearly this is the way the world was created. And clearly, you know, happy feelings that you attribute to a spiritual impression are just, you know, pheromones in your head, chemicals mixing with synapses in your brain, and that's why you feel these things. It's programmed, you know what I mean? It's just like elitist, I'm looking down on you because you're so dumb. So that's where I try to kind of flip the script while I'm on stage. Be like, well, yeah, but you're dumb for being good for no reason at all. So.
And these are also people who would probably stab you in the back to get a gig at Fourth Wall. So, you know, they're not that good.
I mean, let's be honest, we all would. Look, if we had a chance, if improv were still doing things, and we could get Rita to put us on a late night spot, I would murder.
Yeah, everybody hates to rig bucket until they're rigging it for you. Then you're like, oh, I paid my dues.
Yeah, you're like, clearly I made it. I don't know. You just got to put in your time, put in your reps.
I fucking talked to Bruce Gray, man. I earned it.
And he kind of likes me sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, no, 100%.
We're all scumbags, man. I mean, that's why I don't take a lot of this, like whether it's religious or progressive posturing, very seriously.
Yeah, and finally, we're all just trying to be good people making through this, right? Like, so, why not just try to understand and be a little bit nicer about where people are coming from, which is kind of the point of this whole podcast. So,
yeah.
I appreciate you both joining me. Thank you so much. Is there anything you did we cover all your questions that you had?
Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit. Sorry, Andy, if you want to get in there with some more.
Sorry, dude. Sorry.
Did you see that? That was so typical. It's fine. If there were other questions you had, Andy, I don't want to shortchange you. This isn't the super amazing Instagram live feed.
It's gonna be like, do you know Ethan Van Sciver? Do you know John Heater? Are you friends with those dudes?
I don't know any of them, but there's always like the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation nonsense. It's like John Heater used to be a member of this like stake where I am now, and people know who he is, but I never knew him. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, every Friday night is listening to the Killers and watching Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
Right. While Ryan Hamilton's playing in the background.
Did you have to go on a mission, Seth?
So have to, I guess culturally you feel a lot of societal cultural pressure to go, but it's never been forced, quote unquote. So I didn't have to go, but I definitely felt like I should and wanted to. I wanted to go. So I did.
Where'd you go?
I went to Quebec, Eastern Canada.
Did you have to learn French for that?
Yeah. I'd studied some in high school. And then, you can study a language as much as you want, but until you're in the native or a native land where they're speaking it for real, it never really quite hits. So it definitely came into focus when I was on my mission.
Did you have to learn the phrase for "we should separate from Canada"?
No, I guess I could translate that out if I needed to, but it's not like they have, what they say is "je me souviens," which is I remember. I remember. So what they're talking about is their heritage. They really came from Arcadia, right, a part of France, and they are their own people.
My wife's from around Toronto, and they cannot stand the Quebecois.
Yeah, well, I can tell you for them, the feeling is mutual.
Yeah, feeling is mutual.
Yeah. But most of the more politically minded in Quebec that I talked to, admittedly talked about the Quebecois as a group as more of an adolescent. They want mommy and daddy to pay for everything, but they don't want to live in the house. So they want to move out, but they still want mommy and daddy to pay rent, pay food, do their laundry. That's
independence is great in theory, and then you're like, this is all the things we get for being a part of Canada.
Right, exactly. So, I think it's kind of a tolerated issue at this point. Yeah, but I loved it. I loved my time as a missionary. It was great. Met a lot of really great people, and feel like definitely learned a lot about myself. I thought it was really beneficial time.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is there a lot of pressure to go to Brigham Young if you're Mormon, or is it pretty much can you go wherever you want?
Yeah, no, definitely. You can go wherever you want. To be honest, I was bummed about going to BYU initially. Because, I'd done fairly well in high school, and my best friend from high school got into Harvard, so I was really hoping to get into Harvard. And I thought, he and I are going to go to Harvard. We're going to rule the world. And then I didn't get in. So BYU was the safety, and so that's where I ended up going. But it ended up being, that's the way it was supposed to go, I think. So it worked out
Just
great.
think, if you would have gone to Harvard, you could have written for the Lampoon, and you wouldn't be doing this podcast with Andy and I right now.
I know. I'd be doing something else, I guess.
You'd be chilling with Colin Jost and everybody else who writes for Saturday Night Live and every late night show.
Yeah, right. Maybe so. Or I would have done what I initially did, which was law, and I'd be hating my life at some big law firm right now.
Yeah.
True. But hey, you're waiting 2 hours to do 5 minutes of time twice a week.
That's right. I'm living the dream, baby.
Yeah.
Living the dream. Have you guys been doing Zoom shows, speaking of which, over the pandemic, other than the super fantastic Instagram show?
I've been doing it. It was actually Regilio who got me to start doing Zoom shows because we were working on something else.
Yeah.
He was like, why aren't you doing Zoom? You know, the pandemic's not going anywhere. I was like, nah, I did a couple of mics. I didn't like the experience. I just didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And then I started doing Zoom mics, been doing Zoom shows, and I've embraced it. I think it's helped me grow my character. It's helped me learn how to perform in a different way. You're being filmed, so you learn different nuances with your voice and face.
Right.
I think the people who kind of dismiss Zoom are the people who expect it to be live stand-up. As long as you accept the fact that it's not live stand-up, it's something different. It's comedy, but it's not stand-up.
Yeah.
I think you can have fun with it. But
sure,
if you're one of these people looking for Zoom to replicate the live experience, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, 100%. What about you, Andy?
I'm not like seeking them out, but like if a friend asks like, hey, do you want to do this? I'll be like, yeah, sure. That'd be fine. You know, that sounds cool. But yeah, I can't, I know that it's not going to be live stand-up, but after having done live stand-up, you're like, ooh, why would I want?
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to say like this is like the vegetarian version of like real live stand-up, but it feels like it a little bit where it's like it's just like it, but it's not quite like it, but it doesn't hit the same way, and then it also feels weird when you can see people, especially if they're not paying attention. That's like really demoralizing. I feel like.
Sure, I mean, how is that any different than an open mic or a show with someone in the front row that's clearly not paying attention?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's just in the front row. Whereas, like, I feel like at the Zoom mic, you can see 4 or 5 people doing that.
Ah, okay.
Like, I had 2 guys in the same room for some reason using 2 separate Zooms. Start laughing during my set. And I was like, "Oh, was that funny?" They're like, "Oh, sorry, man. This meme popped up." I was like, "Okay, that's good. I'm glad I'm doing this right now." This
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
What about you, Seth? What's your take on this new comedy civil war we got brewing between live and Zoom comics?
I feel like you got to take what is available. You know, live shows are kind of coming back, underground, illegal, illicit, and you know that's. You know, I mean, in all honesty, I feel like that's where comedy started anyway, was in kind of unallowed spaces. So, you know, in a sense, I feel like some of these underground, it's probably a little bit more truer to the art, the history of the form. But as far as, you know, actually performing what you have written and done, you know, I think Zoom is just as good for that as live. It's like you say, Matthew, a different skill set. Just slightly, right? And I think as long as you do adjust, I found when I adjusted my expectations, it definitely felt better doing, you know, Zoom. I performed for the first time in like 7 months live last weekend, and it was amazing. Loved it. And it is a different skill set, you know, both feel very different. And, but you know, after doing Zoom, there's a level of comfort in material that I'd never really gotten doing live, you know, because you rely on. You felt
like your writing had to be stronger on Zoom. Is that what you're saying? Like, is it a writing thing? Is it a performance thing?
More of a performance thing and like trusting in myself. So, you know, when you perform live, you have immediate response. So you can kind of adjust what you're doing and how you're presenting based on that immediate response. You know, you're constant. I feel like I was constantly adapting or trying to in a live setting. On Zoom, because there's such a delay, you either have to just trust this joke's going to hit and I'm going to wait for the laugh.
Gotcha.
Or I'm going to plow through and see what happens because everyone's muted. So I just have to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even in Zoom, there are different shows. You know, there are ones where the audience is there and you can hear them and see them, and then there are ones where they're all muted on purpose. You know, or you're really streaming to Twitch, and then you have like no audience contact other than comments that come up, and they're like a minute delayed or whatever.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like Instagram Live is the same as Twitch in a way.
Yeah. So I do feel like there's a trust in your material that comes with, you know, like I know this joke works because I'm super grateful for the order. I think I would have been toast if it'd been Zoom for 3 years and then going to live. I feel like that's what YouTube stars deal with right now. You know, like they have a skill set and then they go live and it's like, this is not the same thing. So having the background doing it live for a long time and then adjusting it a little bit for Zoom. When I went back and performed live last weekend, not every joke, like the audience did not like every joke that I told. Like they were clearly uncomfortable with some of the stuff that I was talking about. You know, like I attacked like people who believe in crystals when the host went up and talked about him believing in crystals. So like the audience was sort of like, oh, where is this guy going? But, you know, it's like, I don't care. I know these jokes work and I'm just gonna, silence doesn't bother me anymore is kind of the takeaway, you know?
That's the hardest thing to learn in stand-up, man. Enjoying the silence.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what Zoom has really helped me with.
So. I definitely I hope I didn't come across as like Zoom shows are for losers and people who just like have nothing better going on. Like I
definitely what I understood. Wow.
No, I definitely appreciate when people ask me to do Zoom shows. I just feel like I'm like, oh, should I just be writing instead? Like, should I be writing like pilot shows and stuff like that? And
yeah,
it feels weird for me to like I'm on Zoom for like work like half the day and then up off that and then like they're like get on Zoom again, but for people who are gonna
like,
hopefully appreciate what you're about to do. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Yeah, I think, you know, to bring this kind of full circle, I do think what comedians are doing over the pandemic, whether it's getting more into a podcast, writing for TV, you know, or getting a spec script together, or writing their movie they've always wanted to write. Or you know, doing Zoom shows,
an Instagram live stream,
doing an Instagram
to an average of 5 and 6 people each live stream.
I mean, those are some pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
I do feel like there's a spiritual parallel in that we're all just trying to ride this out, and we're all trying to get better at what we're doing. And I'm going to be interested when, you know, vaccine comes in, or when Biden wins and everyone realizes we're fine, when everything comes back. Who are going to be the stars again? Is it going to be the same people? Is it going to be a different group of people? What's going to happen? I think what
there's going to be is, it's not like it's a war, right? But like the people who have been doing the live shows, I think there's going to be this initial resentment towards those who didn't. And there's going to be a little bit of a period where like, fuck you, you guys were scared of COVID. You guys didn't do the live shows. We kept live comedy going. And now you're going to come back to the clubs and start taking these spots.
Sure.
So I think there might be a little bit of a period of a month or two where there might be a little bit of tension.
Yeah. Well, how many of these people who are doing live shows now, like the live mics and the live shows, who are doing the live stuff before but not really getting any traction, do you think they're getting better over this period, or do you think they're doing the same thing they were doing before?
Well, the thing is, I feel like the people, because I've seen like the people who like maybe aren't as skilled a photographer at their live shows or live mics or whatever, are doing a pretty good job of capturing the fact that there's not like they have a huge audience either. There's like maybe a few people scattered around.
Sure.
And, like which like I totally get. Like I did a live mic last Friday, and people were like, "How was it?" I was like, "It was like a mic. There was 8 people there.
Yeah.
They were all waiting to do their material.
Yeah.
I think heard of half my material was making fun of other comedians, but I didn't. So there's like, it's about your life. I don't care so much about that. I'm like, well, good. Glad we're doing this then. And then I hope that like maybe there'd be a moment at the end where we'd all like come together and just talk about our experience. And instead, everybody just walked away into the dark.
Yeah.
Like you do it. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is typical. Like nobody's gotten better, or like hopefully people. I have some friends who are writing a lot, and some friends who are like, I have nothing to write about because I don't want to write about COVID all the time. That's all I'm about.
Right.
Like,
right.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be interested. I feel like, you know, the what's the old adage? You know, it's not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. And I feel like a lot of, you know, you see people who start and soar very quickly. You see people who start and are stagnant for a long time and then maybe get better. You see people who kind of plateau or just like never really seem to get any traction or learn from past sets. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people do the same jokes repeatedly to the same reaction. And it's like, I mean, when are you going to change that?
Yeah.
So I feel like, what's that?
Have you asked them?
No.
Oh.
No, I mean, I you know, I don't know.
Now it's time to play. Who is Seth talking about? Hope it's not my set.
No. I try not to have people that I feel like that about on my podcast. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did that one time. Not a good idea. They were just like, "What? What do you mean?" I was like, Have you tried like doing other jokes?" They're like, "This works." I was like, "I have never seen this joke work. Like, what are you talking?"
Yeah. I mean, I feel like delusion for a stand-up is both a blessing and a curse, a necessity and a vice.
Yeah, I sometimes wish I could be one of those comics that thinks they always kill, because I could have a great set, but I will obsess on the one joke I could have told slightly better. Like, to give you an idea of where my mind works, I'm still thinking about a joke I said in this podcast that I could have hit a little bit harder. And I'm like, fuck, I missed that one joke. It could have been better.
But you know, it's that aspect of you that makes you get better.
No, I think you definitely, I think there's an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote where it's something like, I don't trust a writer who thinks they're good.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that wasn't him. Maybe I'm making it up, but maybe it was someone talking about F. Scott Fitzgerald or whatever. But the sentiment, I think, is true.
Right.
Like, whenever I meet an artist, whether it's a musician, writer, screenwriter, actor, when they have this overconfident bravado, I just always think you're not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're not going to get better. You're not going to have that self-discovery, I mean, sometimes it's tough, man. You just beat yourself up.
Right. Right. But I mean, I would rather be on the spectrum of like, I mean, obviously there's a happy middle somewhere, but most of us don't have that happy middle, right? I feel like most of us are actually on the self-flagellation side of it. At least those who seem to get better are much more self-critical than those who are like, oh no, I crushed.
Well, I think also if you're going to in some ways make fun of yourself for a living, you have to have certain kind of self-esteem problems. You know what I mean? Like, your whole shtick is like being a fool. Like, you're being ridiculous. You're being laughed at.
Right.
There has to be something psychologically there.
Right. Right. And I think, that absolutely that attitude skill set coincides with, I think, how good you are as a stand-up,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we should all have been passed by now. So that's just what I think.
I mean, 100%.
I think we're all
100%. I hope this pandemic has made so many of those who are getting passed at the improv destitute to where they have to go back to their day job full time. They can no longer come back to LA. And there's just going to be a whole bunch of spots open.
I just hope Netflix sees the light and thinks an entire special full of inside fourth wall jokes about other open mic comics that no one's heard of. I want to name my Netflix special, Fuck You, Seth Lawrence. People are like, oh, fuck is Seth Lawrence?
And it's going to get 1 million hits.
Yeah, I'll be like, Fuck You, Seth Lawrence, Andy Ryder, Michael Regilio, and that will be the set.
Joey Lawrence's brother, Seth Lawrence.
Hey, Joey, I hate your brother.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm using your name, because idiots will think it's a Lawrence brother.
That's it. There you go.
If there was a famous writer, I would do that instead.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure. Anything you want to plug other than in particular, your Instagram live show?
Yeah, Andy, you have a lot of good people coming up on your night. You have a couple of American Ninja Warriors. Do we have some Paralympians coming up?
Yeah, we have Jessica Clayton coming up next Saturday. She's a American Ninja Warrior. She's really good. And then we have a Paralympian coming up 2 weeks after that. He's got an amazing story. He was a guy who got shot in the parking lot of a McDonald's and was paralyzed from the waist down. But he's like a really good javelin thrower for the USA, and this is like his first. He was supposed to go to the Paralympics I think it was going to be his first Paralympics. Was supposed to be this year, and then it got moved back a year, so he has to wait. But he's a really interesting story.
And then, not to be outdone, I have Goat versus Fish coming on in November 11th. So
Goat versus Fish, baby.
Also, you're going to be on this show, Seth. I mean, my birthday show on November 4th. I'm having comics on. They're going to roast my character, insult me. My character is going to think that they're coming on to pay tribute to him and compliment him, but everybody's just going to be really mean. And
I love it.
I think CMR is going to get more and more broken as the night goes on. So.
It's going to be great. There's nothing better than a broken CMR.
That or when Andy and I break character. That's when I start fucking things up by going all Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the best parts about your Instagram live show is when CMR gives the profile and starts shaking uncontrollably, holding in laughter.
I always like it when I break Andy. That's always my favorite.
Sure.
Those are the moments my wife always likes the most. She's like, "You broke Andy there. You said something. You could just see Andy's eyes are like." He's kind of like giving that like cancel him look.
Please stop this. Please stop this.
He's gonna take a photo. He's gonna take a photo of his ballot and be like, "Look, I voted the right way. Don't cancel me."
I feel like it's usually breaking out though on the nights when nobody else is watching.
Yeah.
Like the guest canceled last minute, and then it's just me and Matthew talking.
Oh, that was the one. The Andy Ryder, you so crazy. The Gina thing. Yeah, there were like 3 people on it.
Yeah.
Oh my
Damn,
gosh.
Gina, you so crazy.
Yeah. That's also the funny thing too, is sometimes I hear my wife laughing in the bedroom. That's kind of how I can sometimes gauge if things are going well.
Oh, sure. Oh, that's a great barometer.
It's also a lot of people haven't figured out like she's my wife because people are surprised that someone who does comedy like that is married. But
Right. So when is the Instagram live show? Is it every Friday?
No, it's Wednesday and Saturday. Wednesday is my night. They're both at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Wednesday's my night. Saturday's Andy's night. Andy has accomplished people on Paralympians, people who have released specials, and I have a dirtbag open mic comics.
And that's why I've only been on Wednesday.
That's why you got the Wednesday, Seth. Get a special, then you can go on Andy's night.
Unbelievable. Well, this has been a pleasure. I should say before we close this out, Dodgers won the World Series tonight.
Yeah, I was watching that. I was hoping it wouldn't go into extra innings, and I would have to be like,
a winner, baby.
Yeah. So thank goodness they closed it out top of the 9th because they were the home team up in the 9th. Great game. Thank you both so much for joining me. I'll put your Instagram handles in the show notes so everyone knows where to find you. This has been a pleasure. Thank you both so much.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Seth.